Good evening. Tonight is a special school committee meeting to discuss our superintendent search process. In the absence of Richard Howard, the chairperson, I will conduct the meeting. For fellow members of the school committee, in your packet, in front of you is a letter from Richard Howard, chairperson of the Malden School Committee. And I will outline as he asked me to present this to you and to the public. This memo, Superintendent Search 2011, dated March 14th. This will serve as an update on the work of the group assigned to review the recommendation of Mr. Glenn Kuchar, Executive Director of Mass Association of School Committees, regarding the superintendent search process. Mr. Len Iavino and Mr. Kevin Duffy of the school committee, Superintendent Sid Smith, and Debbie Burke of the mayor's office, as well as Mayor Howard, met with Jim Hardy of the Mass Association of School Committee. And we are recommending that the school committee support several documents for distribution in the search effort. The proposed documents, which are attached, are as follows: advertisement for the position, the brochure announcing the vacancy, and application form. We also recommend that MASC use a survey, which is attached, as part of the process to get the community-wide feedback for the school committee's consideration. Finally, I have appointed a search committee and advisory committee to assist MASC in their effort to focus in on the top candidates for the school committee's consideration in accordance with previous school committee votes on the matter. Search committee members are as follows: Stephen Wyshowski, Executive Director, Malden Redevelopment Authority. City Councilor, Judith Bucci, Ward 8. School Committee Member, Stephen Winslow. Marguerite Gonzalez, MEA President. Nancy Kasabian, Assistant Superintendent. Mai Du, Owner, Walloon Kung Fu and Tai Chi Academy. Dr. George Holland, former Superintendent of the Malden Public Schools. Beverly Dinkins, Operator, On the Road Again. And Karen Steele, Director, Partnership for Community Schools, here in Malden. The advisory committee members are as follows: Deborah Burke, Assistant Executive Director, Malden Redevelopment Authority. Eleanor Cushing, Director of Human Resources for the City of Malden. Diane Lind, Malden High School Alumni Association. And Heather Thompson, Student Representative. Also attached for your records is a copy of the agreement between the Malden School Committee and MASC. Does anyone have any questions on this outline from the chairperson? At this time, I'd like to introduce Mr. Jim Hardy of MASC to give us a brief introduction, and then we'll open it up to any questions by the school committee.
I believe.
So that we can pick it up on the
Good evening. It's loud. After our meeting with the work group, some of the work you see in front of you is a result of that meeting. The first thing is the brochure that was put together. That's what we're proposing will be sent out. The timeline is part of that. If you look at the very back panel, there's a red half circle that contains the deadline dates and so for the important dates as far as the searches to go. Looking for obviously a person to come on board for July 1. That timeline allows that to happen in a pretty expedient manner. Moves along pretty quickly. The other component that I believe you have in front of you is the copy of the ad text that we're proposing to go into the Boston Globe in Education Week. Education Week is the national publication, it's the professional publication of school administrators. That would help broaden the search and also touch upon people who will not or may not see the ad just in the Boston Globe. In addition to that, the brochure we'll be, we're going to have 1,200 of them printed up, and that's part of our direct mailing campaign. That, you know, a copy of that brochure will go to every superintendent and assistant superintendent in Massachusetts, as well as New England, and all the universities that offer advanced degree programs in educational administration to their placement office, as well as a cadre of other candidates that have already expressed interest in looking to relocate to Massachusetts for one reason or another. So the advertising piece consists of really three pieces: the brochure, which is direct mail; paid advertising, which would be the Globe and Education Week; and the web posting. And all the web posting obviously is done at no cost to the district because it's in-kind contributions through both the national and local associations. The work that's been done, for the most part, was done by Ms. Burke, putting the brochure together, and I believe the ad text is the exact same text used, just updated with statistical information the last time the search was done. I do have cost numbers for that. For Education Week, the cost would be $3,138, and for the Globe would be $5,270, which equates to just about the same amount that was spent in advertising last time. Ed Week was a little bit less, but the Globe was a little bit more. But it basically comes out to, from what I've been told from Ms. Burke, about the same dollars overall as the last time. So tonight, I would need the committee to authorize the ads. The Education Week ad, the deadline to get into the next edition is this Friday. So that would place the Ed Week ad on the 30th. It's a Wednesday publication, but it's like a 10-day lead time in order to get it in there. But it would be in the Globe this coming Sunday. Again, both deadlines for submitting ads are Fridays to get into both publications. Okay?
Quick question. How, for the $5,000, how long is it in the Globe office?
It's one edition and 30 days online. And this is the same thing with Ed Week. It's one publication and 30 days online, which would encompass the entire time that this vacancy is open. It doesn't make sense to put them up there for 60 days because it closes in 30. So it's perfect. There's a perfect overlap between the advertising period and the close of application deadline. And the brochures, if the committee approves the brochures tonight, those will also go to print, and with the intention of having them ready to be mailed Friday, so they can get stuck in our office on Friday and mailed out either over the weekend or first thing in the morning.
And how many do we send out? Do you send out on
Well, we're having 1,200 printed. We end up with just under 1,000 in the direct mailing. Then we reserve, there'll be like 50 sent to the district, so you have copies here. And then we reserve other ones for people who happen to see the ad and call, who don't actually, might not actually get one in the mail. Plus it's up online. Put the whole thing up online as well. And the application form, which I believe you also have in front of you, will also go online as well. So it can be completed online.
Any questions for Mr. Hardy? Steve?
I'm just kind of...
Steve?
Oh, yeah, please. Just in this day and age where there's really targeting of your market, is the Globe really a good investment? I mean, maybe going 2 weeks in Ed Week might be better. I just throw it out there for conversation. What's your sense of what works?
There's always a question of value when you look at the cost of putting an ad in the Globe. A little bit of my concern is to try to get the notice out there as quickly as possible. The Globe is the best way to do that. Because of the lead time necessary for Ed Week, Education Week, the earliest we can get an ad is the last week of the month. So we'll lose 10 days exposure by going to just Ed Week. I'm not sure you're going to gain that by going a second week or recap or capture that exposure by going to a second week of Ed Week. If I could put an ad in this Sunday's Ed Week, then I would suggest you would do that. You do an ad, skip a week, do another ad. But because of the lead time necessary for Education Week and the fact that we're kind of under a July 1 crunch to try to make sure somebody's in here for that, trying to keep this moving as quickly as possible. In this particular case, even with the overlap that might occur with the direct mailing, I don't feel comfortable suggesting to you not to do it. Where in other cases, if we had a little bit more lead time, I could suggest that to you.
Any other questions? Mr. Iavino?
The only question I had, Jim, is will you advertise in other areas and with other groups that the Malden School Committee is associated with, for example, American Association for School Curriculum Development?
Well, any of the like organizations we have agreements with, for example, National School Boards Association, American Association of School Administrators, National Association of Superintendent Searchers, and as well as any of the other professional organizations that exist, the State School Superintendents Association. We all have kind of like this network that we have this not mutual aid, but mutual agreement that we post their stuff and they'll post our stuff and we don't charge each other for it.
Thank you.
So, Jim, you're looking for us to do 2 approvals tonight. One for the ads for the Boston Globe and the Education Weekly, and the second is for the brochures as printed currently. Is that correct?
Correct. Those are the 2 things that we can't do anything else until we get that approval. We can't put the ads in there without your approval, and they're not going to hit the print button on the brochure without your approval either.
As well as the application, I would assume.
It would be good, but the application is fairly standard to the Malden Public Schools. It's based off of one that's already in existence, so it is kind of an already existing application form. We're using your form versus you're not using our form, we're using your form. So it's a little bit easier that way for you.
Anything else we should know before we put this to a vote that you feel is important? Or it's all self-explanatory, as you've mentioned anyway. So.
Oh, we had a really good discussion the day we met with Mr. Iavino and Mr. Duffy, as well as the mayor and Ms. Burke. And we bounced, we talked about a lot of pros and cons of this date versus that date, and the dates that we ended up agreeing upon seemed to work the best for the district, as well as it worked in really well with advertising windows and school vacation weeks and everything else. So we kind of took everything into account when we developed that timeline, knowing that July 1 was a definitive date. Plus now, it'll give you a little bit of time that you can negotiate a contract, as well as that person who you hire may have to provide some notice to the district they're leaving, and that's always the unknown. You don't know what that number is going to be, what that date's going to be, until you actually get the people in here. This would allow about 30 days window. If you need a little bit more than that, or maybe something could be worked out, but the other timeline really didn't allow. I believe the one Glenn initially provided to you really didn't allow that. Right. So by tweaking some things in the middle, we were able to add some time to the end, which gives you more flexibility as a school committee. You're not going to be up against the gun to negotiate a contract in 2 days.
Right. Thank you. Just for the public to know that according to the brochure, all application materials will be received by MASC on April 22nd. So that's a deadline there. And selection of the new superintendent is expected by May 27, 2011. And of course, our hopeful starting date for the next superintendent would be July 1st or upon availability. Thank you. Upon availability, as Mr. Hardy said, with the new superintendent. So we're going to do 3 motions. Oh, Mr. Hasucci, you have a question?
Oh, okay. I was wondering, how much is the Herald? Is it substantially cheaper? Maybe we could do both?
We typically don't use the Herald at all. Based on, you look at circulation numbers for both newspapers and the cost of the ads is, what we have used the Herald, the cost really wasn't significantly different. And when you look at the circulation numbers, it's dramatically different. And, you know, Globe's connection to Monster.com is a much broader online presence, although it does create a few headaches for me, because people that do keyword searches, any person who's looking to be a superintendent of a building or a superintendent of grounds, their online thing sends me a resume. I have to treat it like an application, but obviously it doesn't count in the completed file. But that's the problem with keyword searches. That's my problem, not yours.
Mr. Winslow?
Did we get a price on the brochures? Do you have an estimate? How much is that?
I believe the mayor said he was going to do that out of, I don't want to put words in his mouth because he's not here, but I believe he said he was going to do it out of his office.
Yes.
Because they're being processed by Ms. Burke.
Okay, so we're not voting on an allocation of school funds to pay for that?
No, just the approval of the format so they can get them printed.
Oh, so should we give some comments on the brochure right now then, or?
Yes, this is the time.
Okay, I did, well, one of the things just a simple comment was that I thought maybe a stronger statement about that we have basically rebuilt the entire school, building since 1999. So there's a good statement in this is on the brochure. In the ad, I think there's a really good statement about that, about all newly built K through 8 and extensive renovation high school. So I think if that was in the brochure, that would be good. And then just looking at the qualifications for the position. One of the things, I'm just looking at the first qualification, I'm wondering if that's a little bit too narrow for where I'm coming from. I know one of the things people have expressed a concern about is having someone who could have some longevity. And if we only looking for people who are superintendent or administrators, it may narrow us too much. I'm wondering if there's a way to say someone who has cross-district curriculum development experience, someone like we do have the lead teachers and that type of thing. We're developing curriculum, lead teachers and that who might be qualified, or someone who may not be a central administrator but has shown that type of thing. I'm just trying to, should we be a little more open-minded about who we might be seeking? I'm just throwing it out there to other people about that qualification may be going too narrowly. I mean, as being on the search committee, I would certainly, look to rate someone higher than that. But I think, I'm also thinking that maybe there's a diamond in the rough we should be maybe willing to consider. So that's just something I'm throwing out there. I thought maybe that first qualification might be a little too narrow, and I want to get a sense of the rest of the committee on that.
Thank you. Mr. Iovino.
Well, thank you. Steve, on the third bullet down, I think that heightens and explains a little bit more of what they're looking for, because it speaks to a thoughtful curriculum and instructional leader who will continue the commitment of raising standards and improving academic achievement and access for all students. So I think that touches on your, and it is a good point that you brought up about curriculum, which of course is the heart and soul of every school system. But I think that speaks to your concern. I think it does anyway.
On that first bullet, it actually says preferred, meaning that implies it's not a hard, rigid requirement, but preference would be given to candidates that meet that criteria, but you wouldn't necessarily be excluded if you don't.
Thank you. Anyone else have a comment on the brochure? Mr. Winslow?
I just generally, when I see job descriptions, if something's preferred, you kind of put that down further. I'm just wondering if there's a little more broad language when I see that being the first thing we're leaving. The way I read it was the refer to the urban school system, and I guess I was concerned it was a little bit too strong a language of maybe adding in a second, third description, superintendent, central office administrator, or, administrator with cross-district experience or something like that. An assistant principal who has curriculum development experience. I guess I'd be willing to at least look at, in the first round or something like that, at least have a resume and look at that. So that's just throwing that out there.
Superintendent, did you?
Yeah, I'd just like to express that unless there are major changes that people would like to have, the launch of this search has already taken quite a while, and I think it needs to be launched as quickly as possible. My thoughts on that?
Thank you, Superintendent. Mr. Duffy?
Yes, just to back up the superintendent's statement, we had a great discussion over this, the group that met on this. We had a lot of experience with previous searches. Mr. Hart has been involved in many, many searches. So we had good discussions on this, and we made as strong a document as we could. I'm sure if we went around and asked opinions,